All right. I think, Helen, we are good to start.
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to explore how AI is changing product discovery, why trusted product data is becoming the foundation of visibility in this new environment.
And I think when we look at this, the word visibility is doing a lot more work than it used to. I mean, when we look back for years, visibility meant ranking, being searchable, appearing in results. But in an onset engine world, visibility is increasingly means something far more decisive. Are you understood? Are you trusted? And are you selected?
And I think that's the shift we'll unpack today, right?
I mean, exactly, because AEO isn't just another three-letter acronym to add to the SEO pile, even though you may think it is. It represents a very real change in how product information is being interpreted and used. AI is not just helping people search faster, it's increasingly helping them to evaluate, compare, shortlist, and decide.
Well, I will bring the governance, data foundation, and operating model perspective.
And I'll focus on the AEO lens, what onset engines need, why product data quality matters, how brands can test visibility, and what organizations should be doing now if they want their products to be recommended rather than simply published.
So the key question is no longer only can AI find your content?
It's, will AI trust your product data enough to recommend you? So let's get started. First of all, before we get into the really good stuff, and it's going to be amazing, here's just a little bit of housekeeping. Your lines will remain muted, but please do use the chat for questions as we go. We want this to feel like a conversation, not a lecture with slides behaving badly in the background.
We will keep this session conversational and then come back to a question towards the end.
The webinar will also be recorded and shared afterwards, so if there's something you want to revisit or share with colleagues, you'll be able to do that.
And request you all to please use the chat. AEO is then still evolving topic for many organizations.
Yes, and that's part of why it's so interesting. There isn't one perfect playbook yet, but there are already some very clear patterns emerging around data quality, structure, trust, and measurement. And that's what we're going to get into today.
Okay, so I will quickly introduce myself. I am Sandeep Kumar, solution architect for MDM at Apgar. My focus today is on governance, how organizations put the right ownership, rules, standards, and operating model around data so that it can be trusted and used at scale.
And I'm Helen Grimster. I'm a senior solutions consultant at Syndigo. I've been in the space for a little while. I used to work at Gartner and for other MDM and PIM vendors. But my focus today is on the AEO and product data side, how onset engines can interpret product information, what makes product data visible and usable, and why this topic sits right at the intersection of commerce, marketing, data, and governance.
I think, Helen, that's an important point right straight away. This is not just a technical SEO topic.
No, absolutely not. SEO is absolutely part of the story, but AE is so much bigger. It's about whether your product information is structured enough, consistent enough, and of course, credible enough to support a recommendation.
And that is exactly why Apgar and Syndigo are having this conversation together.
Yeah, because if the data isn't governed, AI won't trust it. And if trusted data isn't activated, AI may never see it. So here's the journey we'll take today with you. We'll start with the new reality, how discovery is changing, and why organizations need to pay attention now.
Then we will move into the decision problem, how AI evaluates product information differently, and what that means for visibility.
Then we'll look at why AEO is not simply SEO, but with a shiny AI hat on. AEO is about selection. It's about whether the information is available about your products is strong enough to support an answer, a comparison, and of course, the all important recommendation.
And then we talk about trust and governance at scale.
I mean, this is where we have to really think about governance becoming more than just an internal data discipline. It becomes a visibility enabler.
And then we look into how trusted data becomes visible through product data management, enrichment, activation, and syndication.
And then we'll also cover measurement, because one of the questions I'm hearing more and more is, how do we actually know if we're performing well in AEO?
And finally, we finish with AEO readiness playbook.
So by the end of the day, we really want you to be able to go back to your organization and ask better questions, not just, do we have content, but is our product data good enough to be trusted, understood, and recommended by AI?
Now, before we go further, let's start with a quick audience question. How many of you have used ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, or Perplexity to research a product?
So if you want to vote, that would be great, because I love starting here because it makes the topic real. We can talk about AEO in theory all day, but most of us have already changed our behavior without necessarily calling it that.
I think in our day-to-day life, we ask AI to summarize, compare, and recommend products.
And that's the point. Buyer behavior often changes before organizational strategy catches up. People don't wait for your operating model to be ready before they start asking AI what to buy.
Let's give a moment for answer.
And while you're thinking that, while you're responding, think about how different that behavior is from a traditional search. You're not just asking for a set list of links, you're asking for interpretation, you're asking for judgment, you're asking for a shortlist.
Does this also mean that that the buyer is entering into the journey, the customer journey, earlier than the organizations realize?
And of course, that's exactly it. This is where AI starts to matter. So thank you very much for giving us your feedback. I don't know if we can see the results. I don't know if that pops up. I can't remember how that works. But anyway, oh, here we go. Oh, look at everybody. We're all on it already. Look, we're either frequently or occasionally. I'm glad that nobody has never used it. That's quite reassuring that we're talking to the right about the right topic. So thank you very much for that. So with that, we'll get started.
So, Ellen, before we talk about AI visibility, governance, or product data, it is worth stepping back and asking why suddenly this topic has become so relevant.
I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? Every time you go onto LinkedIn or, it's even popping up in Facebook or wherever you are. I mean, I'm not a TikToker, but because product discovery is changing, and I don't mean in a vague AI is coming, everybody panic politely kind of way, I mean in the fact that the journey is changing in measurable, practical ways. Customers are now asking AI assistants the sort of questions they used to ask search engines, sales teams, review sites, or comparison engines.
So basically, the behavior is moving upstream.
Exactly. I mean, what we're seeing is AI is increasingly influencing consideration before the customer reaches a website, before they open a product page, and sometimes before they even know which brands to consider.
And that changes the role of product information.
It really does. Product data is no longer just there to populate the PDP. It becomes part of the evidence AI is using to decide whether a product is relevant, comparable, and of course, trustworthy.
So the point of inception or the starting point itself has changed now.
Absolutely. The starting point is no longer always search and click. Increasingly, it's ask and be advised. This is the discovery shift. More product research is beginning in AI assistance. This matters because the format of the question has changed. A search query might be sustainable trainers. An AI query might be, what are the best sustainable trainers for wet weather that are durable and not too expensive? You can tell I'm a runner. That is a completely different level of intent.
And a more complex data challenge, ain't it?
It certainly is. That type of question requires more than keywords. It requires attributes, use cases, product relationships, claims, context, and of course, confidence.
So the product evaluation is also happening earlier.
Yes, and this is probably the uncomfortable bit for brands. By the time someone lands on your website, they may have already been influenced by an AI generated recommendation or comparison.
So basically, the discovery is shifting closer to the point of decision.
And that's the key. Product discovery is gradually becoming recommendation driven. And if recommendations are being formed before the click, then your data has to work harder before the click. This side sums up the shift nicely. Search is becoming selection. Search used to be about finding. Answer engines are about recommending, and agents will be increasingly be about choosing.
That's quite a significant progression.
It certainly is, because the further along that progression we go, the more important trust becomes. If a search engine returns 10 links, the human still does a lot of the evaluation. But if an answer engine summarizes the options or an agent recommends a product, then AI is doing more interpretation on behalf of the buyer.
Basically, visibility becomes less passive.
Exactly. Being visible used to mean being present. Now it increasingly means being selected into the answer. That is a much higher bar.
And I think that is where the product data becomes more strategic. No?
Absolutely. I mean, if AI is making recommendations, then product data is not just operational plumbing. It is so much part of your commercial influence layer. Now, I would say this flow is really important. A customer asked a question. AI interprets the intent. A product recommendation is generated. Then the customer may visit the website. This means that the website is no longer always the first point of persuasion.
But it may be the validation point.
Exactly, and that changes what we need the data to do. Historically, and we all know this, product data supported the product page. Now, product data also has to support AI interpretation before the product page.
So the data has to be usable outside the owned channels.
Absolutely. It has to be structured, consistent, and available in all the places. AI may be learning from crawling, summarizing, or referencing.
What if it isn't, Helen?
Well, AI may misunderstand your product, underrepresent it, compare it poorly, or unfortunately ignore it altogether.
So the risk is having not just having a bad content.
No, I mean, obviously that's not great, but the risk is invisibility before the customer ever reaches you.
Again, Helen, just in the whole world of acronyms that we have, and this is addition of new acronyms as well. So before we define that, before we deep dive further into it, let's define what all these acronyms means for us.
I mean, yeah, we all know we love an acronym. Look at me with my PIM t-shirt. But acronyms are where good ideas sometimes go to put a blazer and become unnecessarily confusing. So let's just keep it simple. SEO is search engine optimization. It's about improving visibility in traditional search engines. Can buyers find me?
So SEO lets you or gets you found.
Absolutely. Then we've got GEO, which is generative engine optimization. It's about whether your brand or product is referenced in AI generated summaries and answers. Does AI know I exist?
So GEO means your product gets referenced or gets you referenced in general.
Yes, absolutely. And now AEO, which is answer engine optimization. This is about whether your product is recommended, selected, or chosen in response to a buyer question. Will AI recommend me?
So AI or AEO gets you chosen.
That's the distinction. SEO is about being searchable, GEO is about being visible in the generated answer, and AEO is about being selectable.
So summarizing, so it is searchable, visible, and selectable.
That's exactly right. But these are not replacements for one another. AEO doesn't kill SEO, it builds on it. But the bar is even higher because AI needs more than just a page to rank. It needs evidence to recommend. So, if we think about it, if discovery is changing, the next question becomes, what does AI actually need to make decisions?
So this is where we shift from channels to foundation.
Yes, because if we only talk about channels, we risk treating AEO like another distribution problem. But AEO is not just about where content appears. It's about whether the underlying product information is good enough to be interpreted and trusted.
And hence the issue moves upstream.
Upstream into product data, taxonomy, attribution, governance, quality, and activation.
Which brings us into the decision problem.
And for me, this is where AEO gets really interesting. So before we go any further, we'd love to get your perspective. When you think about AI visibility, where is the biggest barrier in your organization? Is it poor product data quality, lack of clear ownership or governance, inconsistent information across systems, or limited understanding of how AI evaluates products?
I think this question is very relevant and question matters as well because many organizations assume that the barrier is technology.
Yes, and of course, sometimes it is. But in my experience, the biggest issue is often that the data isn't ready for the job we now need it to do.
Or maybe the underlying ownership model is unclear.
Exactly. And unfortunately, AEO exposes the messy middle. Who owns the data? Who validates it? Who enriches it? Who decides what good looks like? And who measures whether it works?
We will give everyone a moment to respond to this question.
And whatever the answer is, keep it in mind because these barriers are exactly what the rest of the session is designed to unpack. So thank you very much for voting. Let's see what everybody thought. Oh, a real mix across there. But it does look like, for us, which of course we were very happy to see, that it's inconsistent information across systems plus a bit of poor product data quality. That's kind of what I would expect, wouldn't you think, Sandeep?
Oh, I think, but this also brings us to the whole conversation around ownership and governance as well. I think it's a combination. I think, and I don't think that any of that is a right or a wrong answer, but
No,
reflects that how organizations fare and on different dimensions as well.
totally.
Everything so far, Helen, has been around one central challenge, right? And that's the decision problem.
Absolutely. And this is the heart of AEO for me. If AI is helping buyers evaluate products, what is it actually using to decide? Not what do we wish it used, not what looks lovely on the website. What signals are strong enough, structured enough, and consistent enough for AI to trust?
So the question is no longer about content visibility.
No, the question becomes, can AI understand the product, compare it fairly, match it to a need, and recommend it with confidence?
That is a much tougher standard.
Yes, it is, and it's why organizations need to think beyond content production. AEO requires decision grade product information. Now, I would say the biggest myth about AEO is that it's primarily an SEO problem. Unfortunately, it's not. SEO absolutely still matters. Content still matters. But if the answer to AEO is let's write more blogs, then we've entirely missed the point.
I think many organizations also assume that that success means more content, better blogs, more keywords, and even more optimization.
Yeah, but if AI evaluates structure, consistency, context, relationships, and trust, and those are not just content qualities, they are data qualities.
And I think this is where governance enters.
Exactly. And hello, governance, because AI doesn't just need persuasive language, it needs reliable signals. It needs to know what the product is, what category it belongs in, what attributes matter, what use cases it supports, how it compares, whether the same facts appear consistently, and of course, whether the source can be trusted.
So basically, the key insight here is that this is a data challenge masquerading as a content challenge.
Yes, and once you see that, you can absolutely see that AEO becomes bigger than SEO. It becomes a product data readiness challenge.
I think this slide shows a difference between how we as customers or humans as customers see versus how AI sees it.
And it's really important because a customer sees the story. They see images, reviews, branding, claims, and creative messaging. AI sees attributes, specifications, taxonomy, structured signals, and of course, machine readable data. And that distinction matters because humans are brilliant at filling in gaps. AI is not always forgiving in the same way.
Because as humans interpret ambiguity.
Absolutely. A customer might understand from context that a product is suitable for families, outdoor use, or sensitive skin. But AI needs those ideas expressed as data points, attributes, relationships, or clearly structured content.
So the same product is perceived differently between the humans and between the AI.
Absolutely, because we know customers buy stories, but AI evaluates signals. And the best AEO strategy connects both. You still need compelling product content, but it needs to be supported by structured data that AI can actually use. So for me, this is one of the lines I keep coming back to. AI doesn't read, it decides. Now, obviously, AI processes text. But in the context of product discovery, the important point is that AI is using information to support a decision. Is this product relevant? Is it suitable? Is it comparable? Is it trustworthy? And of course, should it be recommended?
So basically, AI is interpreting and evaluating signals.
It absolutely is. Where as humans, we read, interpret, and respond to story. AI evaluates, classifies, resolves attributes, and assesses signals. That means your product data has to do more than describe. It has to support a decision.
And what if can't? What if it can't?
Well, then the product may not be selected. And unfortunately, that's the really brutal bit. AEO is not just about being present in the digital ecosystem. It's about being convincing enough through data to be included in the recommendation.
So basically, the product data becomes the evidence.
Absolutely. Product data becomes the evidence behind the answer, and that is so important.
And then what makes AI trust a product?
Well, I put it really simply, confidence. AI is trying to reduce uncertainty. When a buyer asks a question, the system is trying to return an answer that feels relevant and reliable. So the product with clearer, richer, more consistent signals has an advantage.
Yeah, I hope we're not talking about the traffic signals, but what are the AI signals that, or what kind of signals are we referring to here?
No, I'm not talking about traffic signals. I'm talking about, well, we could, but I'm talking about things like complete attributes, consistent product identity, clear categorization and taxonomy, structured metadata, strong relationships between data, trusted source information. So, for example, if one product has complete specs, consistent dimensions, clear use cases, strong categorization, and aligned information across channels, while another has vague copy, missing attributes, which one is easier for AI to understand?
I think the first one.
Of course, because AI will choose confidence over creativity. Of course, that does not mean that creativity is irrelevant. What it really does mean is that creativity needs a structured foundation underneath it.
So the recommendation is a trust decision for AI.
Absolutely. Recommendation is a trust decision. And organizations need to ask, are we giving AI enough reliable evidence to trust us? So probably this is one of my favorite slides because it cuts right through the hype. And I'm going to be really honest, most organizations don't have an AI problem. They have a product data problem.
So missing data, inconsistent, incomplete data, or conflicting signals.
Of course, exactly. And those issues, of course, are not new. We've been talking about these for years. They've often been sitting inside your organization and you know they're there. You've got your Excel spreadsheets, you've got all of your different sources of data. Unfortunately, the difference is that now AI makes them far more visible and unfortunately more commercially painful.
So because the data is now being used in new innovative ways.
Absolutely. What data that used to be good enough to populate a product page may not be good enough to support AI-driven recommendations. AEO raises the standard. It asks whether your product data is complete enough to ask complex questions, consistent enough to be structured, to be trusted, and structured enough to be used beyond your own channels.
So basically, AI does not create the data problem, but it exposes the weakness.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it does. It's making it so that you can see that you have an issue. It's exposing the fact that your data isn't as complete as it should be. And unfortunately, if that's the case, it will quietly recommend somebody else, which is rude, but instructive.
But then this raises a question, an important one as well, that who owns the AI visibility?
And for me, this is where things get quite spicy because the answer is usually everyone and no one. And we know this is the case with people with data. For example, marketing may own messaging, product teams may own product knowledge, data teams own structure and quality, commerce teams own activation, IT owns systems, governance own standards and accountability.
So it cuts across all the functions, all the way from marketing to IT.
It completely does. And that's why AEO cannot sit neatly in one team, even though you may think it can. If marketing tries to solve it alone, they may create better copy, but still lack structured data. If IT tries to solve it alone, they may improve systems, but not commercial positioning. If data tries to solve it alone, they may improve governance, but not activation.
So it's a shared ownership between the commercial team and the technical team.
Absolutely, exactly. That's exactly what it is. AI doesn't see your org chart, even though you may think it can see everything, it sees your product information. And unfortunately, if your internal silos create inconsistent external signals, AI will have less reason to trust the answer. So, for me, if AI visibility depends on trust, the next question, of course, is how do you build that trust at scale?
I think that is where the governance becomes essential.
And honestly, and I love governance, this is where governance needs a brand refresh. It really does. Because governance can sound like rules, approvals, and people saying no in meetings. But in this context, governance is what enables confidence.
And it creates a repeatability as well and more consistent outcomes.
Absolutely. It makes sure that product data is not created just once, but maintained, validated, and trusted across the life cycle.
So governance becomes a growth capability.
It absolutely does. And I think that's been underestimated for such a long time because in an AI discovery world, governance is not the boring bit after the exciting AI bit. Governance is what makes the AI bit useful. And that is so often forgotten.
So trust at a scale then depends on ownership, accountability, and governance.
Yes, and those words matter. Ownership means someone knows they are responsible. Accountability means quality has consequences. And for me, of course, governance means that there are shared rules for what good looks like.
So in absence of ownership, accountability, and governance, we have data fragments, data silos.
We absolutely will have, and fragmented data will, of course, create fragmented signals. From an AEO perspective, that is so dangerous because AI is looking for confidence. If different systems, channels, or sources tell slightly different stories, AI has to decide which one to trust.
And that will eventually weaken the visibility.
It will weaken the visibility of your products, yes. So governance will become competitive, and we don't want governance to be competitive. Not because governance itself is glamorous, which of course it is, and people underestimate how beautiful it is, but because trusted data gives AI something stronger to work with. And I suppose this really is summarising what the governance gap is. Most organisations focus on visibility before trust. They jump straight into content, campaigns, optimizations, and channels.
And I think that is the assumed shortcut here.
It really is. But if the underlying product information is incomplete, inconsistent, or poorly governed, that shortcut doesn't hold. The real path is governance, trust, then visibility.
So governance, trust, and visibility. Is that the order that also matters here?
I absolutely think it is, because you can write brilliant copy, but if your product attributes are missing, your categories are inconsistent, your claims aren't structured, or your data differs by channel, AI may still struggle to recommend you.
And you cannot optimize the responses and the answers from the AI agent if the underlying data isn't trusted enough.
Absolutely. Trust is the foundation, and with that, visibility is the outcome.
Right. So I think at this point, it is worth explaining why Apgar and Syndigo are doing this together.
Absolutely, because AEO needs both strategy and execution. Apgar brings the governance and operating model lens. That will be ownership, stewardship, standards, accountability, and how organizations actually manage trust at scale.
And Syndigo brings the product data and activation lens.
Exactly, because product data management, enrichment, PIM, MDM, syndication, and getting trusted data out into the places where discovery actually happens is so important.
So data governance or the governance in general creates the conditions for trust.
And activation turns trusted data into visibility.
And in this current world, I think we need both, right?
Absolutely. Trust without activation is invisible. Activation without trust is risky. Magic is in bringing the two together in a happy partnership.
So governance creates trust. The next challenge is making that trust visible.
Exactly, because trusted data sitting quietly in a system somewhere is lovely, but it doesn't help if AI never sees it. Channels don't receive it, or customers don't benefit from it.
So then we move from governance into activation.
Yes, we're moving from do we trust the data to can we use that trusted data everywhere it needs to go?
That includes the internal systems, external channels, marketplaces, and AI-driven discovery environments.
Yeah, and this is where product data stops being a back office asset, which it never should be anyway, and becomes part of the discovery engine. So this life cycle is simple, but really important. So we can go create, govern, enrich, validate, activate, measure. AEO depends on all of it.
Let's break this down a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that. So at creation, we have to think, are we capturing the right information from the start? Then when we look at governance, do we have ownership and standards? When we're in the enrichment phase, are we adding the context AI needs? When we're in the validation part, our quality before the data moves downstream. At activation, are we distributing the data consistently? And finally, of course, when we're in the measurement stage, do we know whether it's actually working?
So this is not a last mile operationalizing or optimization exercise.
No, it really isn't. And that's the whole point. AE performance starts way further upstream than perhaps you thought about. If you're trying to fix AEO at the point of publication, you're probably too late. The foundation needs to be built upon the entire data lifecycle.
So, like we mentioned earlier as well, Helen, so basically the customer journey has shifted upstream. So here also the visibility starts upstream in the product data model.
That line is key. I think that's the whole important context of what we're talking about, the shift in needing to have this much further and sooner than perhaps you'd first thought about.
So how do you think about turning trust into visibility?
Well, for me, structured product data is powering modern discovery. PIM, MDM, and syndication are no longer just system categories. In the context of AEO, they become visibility infrastructure.
Because they help manage and distribute trusted information.
Absolutely. We know that PIM helps manage rich product information. MDM helps create trusted connected master data. And syndication helps activate that information across endpoints. When those capabilities work together, organizations can create product data that is more complete, more consistent, more structured, and more available.
And that supports AI visibility.
Yes, because AI visibility is not just about what appears on one website. It's about the wider data footprint around your product.
So the question now becomes, is your product data backbone strong enough?
It absolutely is. And do you have decision grade product information? Unfortunately, this is where organizations often get stuck. They're really invested in platforms, content, governance, or data quality. But then they ask, how do we know if AI is actually recommending us?
But then traditional SEO metrics don't fully answer that question.
They don't. Rankings, clicks, and traffics, of course, still matter, but they don't tell the whole story when the customer may receive an answer without ever clicking through first.
So as we are evolving from SEO to AEO, hence the measurements also has to evolve.
Yes, it does, because AEO needs a different measure. What we need to measure now is whether we appear, whether the information is accurate, whether we're positioned correctly, and unfortunately, whether our competitors are being recommended instead.
And visibility without a measurement or without right KPIs is mere guesswork.
Oh, it absolutely is. And unfortunately, AEO is too important to manage by vibes, even excellent vibes. We need a repeatable way to test. So we've talked about discovery, decision making, trust, governance, and activation. Now we need to make it practical.
So what should organizations actually do next?
And we all know the temptation is to turn this into a massive transformation program straight away. But you don't have to start there. You can start by asking better questions, as we can see in this example.
So,
Can,
sorry, I lost it. Can you hear
oh,
me?
yeah, have
Okay,
I,
go ahead. Sorry, I had an issue.
can AI find us? Can AI trust us? Will AI recommend us?
And then that creates a practical entry point.
Exactly. AEO readiness is not one thing, it's a set of capabilities that need to work together.
In your opinion, Helen, where should the organizations or what are simplest questions that organizations should start with?
And here they are. These are the three questions I think you really need to be thinking about. First of all, can AI find me? Then, can AI trust me? And probably the most important, will AI recommend me? So the first is presence. Are we appearing at all? The second is quality. Is the information accurate, complete, and consistent? And the third is selection. Are we being recommended in the moments that matter?
So SEO measured rankings.
It did, but AEO measures selection. And that's a really important distinction. In SEO, you might be happy to appear on page one. In AEO, appearing vaguely in the ecosystem may not be enough. You want to be included in the answer, represented accurately, and recommended for the right reasons.
That is a more demanding standard.
It really is, but it's also probably a more useful one. A practical AEO assessment starts with the questions buyers actually ask. Something like that we're seeing here. At the awareness stage, someone may ask, what are the best sustainable brands? Here, we're testing whether the brand appears and whether AI associates it with the right themes.
So this is about visibility and association.
Exactly. Then, if we look at the comparison stage, someone might ask, compare X with Y. Now we're testing whether AI understands the differences, strengths, weaknesses, and positioning.
So about accuracy and differentiation.
Absolutely, that's what they're looking at there. Then at the purchase stage, someone might ask, what's the best product for? And that's where we test whether products are being recommended for specific needs or use cases.
And that is the competitive dimension.
Exactly. And that one is really important because someone may ask, what alternatives are there to brand X? That tells you whether you appear in competitive consideration sets and who AI recommends instead.
And that reveals a lot of things.
It really can give you so much more insight. It tells you whether your positioning is visible, whether your key differentiators are understood, and whether your competitors are giving AI clearer signals than you are.
So we evaluate visibility, accuracy, positioning, and recommendation.
Yes, but I'd also add in consistency as well, because if ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, and Google style AI experiences all return different or incomplete views, that tells you something about your data footprint.
So visibility is just not alone enough.
It really isn't. Visibility, of course, is the starting point, not the whole story. You need to measure five things, of course. First, visibility, do we appear? Then, second, accuracy, is the information about our product correct? Then, of course, next, it's positioning. Are we being recommended for the right use cases? Then we can look at consistency. Do different AI platforms return similar answers? And really, you want to look at your competitive presence. Who gets recommended instead?
And the competitive presence is a powerful one.
It really is, because AEO is not about whether you appear. That's not just all of it. It's about share of recommendation, share of answer, and whether your competitors are taking the space you expected to occupy.
So this five dimensions of measurement helps explain why.
It really does. And it helps you see whether, if you don't appear, is it because your data is incomplete? Your category language is weak. Your attributes aren't structured. Your presence across channels is inconsistent. Or, unfortunately, your competitors have stronger signals. This is the level of diagnosis organizations need. So, we would say that an AEO readiness framework is built around governance at the centre. It really is, for me, the centre of the universe. And you've got completeness, consistency, activation, and visibility all around it.
And governance sits right at the core of it.
And that's intentional because, for me, governance is the control layer for whatever you're doing. I mean, you've got completeness as asking, do we have enough product information? Consistency asks, are we saying the same thing everywhere? Of course, when you're looking at activation, is our data reaching the right places? And with the visibility, are we appearing and being represented correctly? But governance is what makes all of that scalable.
And I think without governance, the other areas are also a bit harder to maintain.
Yes, because you might clean up data once, but without ownership, rules, and accountability, we all know it's going to drift again and maybe again. And AEO doesn't reward a one-off cleanup. It rewards ongoing trust. That's so important.
Helen, from the governance framework to what are the leading organizations doing now?
And you've probably seen this as well. They're doing five practical things. Firstly, they're actually auditing their product data quality. Not just, do we have content, but is the data complete, structured, and usable? Then they're looking at defining ownership, because if everybody owns AEO, nobody owns AEO. And then they're standardizing. They're looking at their taxonomy, attributes, naming, claims, categories, rules. And then they're looking at how that they activate their data consistently across all of the channels and endpoints where they're selling their products. And fifth and finally, they're measuring AI visibility continuously.
I think the continuous point matters here among the various layers that you have put in here as well, Helen.
It really does because AI isn't a one-time exercise. It really isn't. AI answers can change as content changes, data changes, market changes, and competitors improve. So, as an organization, you need to treat AEO as an ongoing discipline, not a campaign. So, we've covered a lot. So, let's bring this back to you and your organization. If you look at this list here, what is most likely to become your next priority? Is it improving product data quality, strengthening governance and ownership, testing how AI tools answer buyer questions, or building a framework to measure AI visibility?
In my honest opinion, I don't think there is a one universal starting point.
Really, it really depends on each individual organisation and what your pain points are. If your data is incomplete, I would suggest start there. If you've got messy ownership, that could be your way to get going. If you don't know how AI currently represents your brand, maybe you might want to start with prompt testing. But the important thing here is to start somewhere practical.
I think having a framework in general does help and it breaks the challenge down.
Well, yeah, because otherwise AEO can feel like one big foggy AI blob. And nobody needs another foggy AI blob. So, what did you think? Let's see what your responses were. Ooh, interesting. Okay, pretty even across everything there. Okay, but slightly edging ahead is product data quality, probably as we would expect. What
I
did
think
you think?
that the foundations always play a pivotal approach, and I think every organization obviously like to prioritize their foundations to be much more optimized and organized.
Definitely. Thank you very much. So, I think from our point of view, if there's one thing to remember, it's this. AI doesn't reward the most content. It rewards the most trusted product data. And that really is the heart of AEO. Not more content for the sake of content, not keywords for the sake of keywords, not AI hype sprinkled on top of old processes. AEO is about giving answer engines the structured, consistent, trustworthy product information they need to make a recommendation.
And governance makes that trust scalable.
Of course, governance makes trust scalable, activation makes trust visible, measurement tells you whether it's working. And I think if you forget about governance, you really are forgetting about the really important thing that you need for AEO and for AI to be successful. So, there we
I
go.
think this brings us back to our core message.
It really does. And I think this is my favorite tagline. Be visible, be trusted, be selected. That almost sounds like a t-shirt slogan. But that is the AEO journey. As we know, and we've talked about, SEO measures measured rankings, whereas AEO measures selection. And selection is really a higher bar. It means AI understands what you sell, trusts the information available, sees relevance to the questions being asked, and includes you in that recommendation.
So organizations need to start ask different questions.
They really do. Not just are we publishing content, but are we providing reliable signals? Not just can customers find us, but can AI understand us? Not just are we visible, but are we trusted enough to be selected?
So before we move into the questions, let's quickly recap, Helen.
Yeah, let's think about this. I mean, we've really made it clear, and hopefully you've understood that discovery is changing. It's not the way it used to be. Maybe it's not moving as fast as perhaps everybody thinks that it is, but we are definitely seeing the way that people look for products and search for what they're going to buy has evolved because AI is evaluating products differently. AEO is far more than just SEO. And I think we really need to be aware that product data is becoming the evidence behind those recommendations. And trust matters more than ever. And governance creates that trust. And the way that you activate your products, it turns that trust into visibility. And probably really importantly, measurement tells you whether it's working.
So basically, the next step is not just asking whether you have content.
No, it's asking whether AI would trust your product data enough to recommend you.
Okay, I think with that, we'd love to hear the questions from the audience.
Yeah. And if you're thinking of that, I'd maybe just start with one like little practical next step. I mean, I would suggest, and if you are up for it in your organization, is start with a small prompt-based assessment. Maybe pick a few real buyer questions across awareness, comparison, purchase, and competitive discovery.
I think we have a question, Helen. I think Subhajit asked if there is any recommended framework where I can evaluate my product visibility.
Do you want to take that one?
I think we already mentioned about the framework that we have established, but also, from an Apgar point of view, we can also come and help you at understanding the kind of maturity that where you are and what are the journey that you can take, keeping the governance in the mix of the central point and the core of the focus, along with evaluating the completeness and the consistency of the data.
Yeah.
Any points from you, Helen?
I think it's really important to think about where you are on your journey and how, where you want to get to. And I think it's starting small. If you know that you've got that issue, it's just assessing the small steps that you can take to move forward. Of course, and the solutions can support you, but you need to be thinking about how you can get that across the organization and also get people behind maybe some of the change that they're going to need to go through to bring governance more prominently into the picture, and maybe make it a little bit more exciting than perhaps it's been seen as before. I mean, unfortunately, a bit like MDM, some of these things that have been around for a little while are not seen as sexy and exciting. But you need to have that foundational layer of good data to do all of these fun things for making sure that you have the right content where you need it.
I think we have another two questions from Vanessa. The first one is, what is your view on where in the PIM stack intent-driven attributes should sit?
Ooh, where in the pins that? Intent driven. Oh, I don't know if you have a thought on that, Sandeep.
No, because we have most times we focus on the attributes that is about the product characteristics and the quality about that. But it's I think it's a valid point of having the right intent attributes as well, considering that the way AI agents are getting matured and the kind of responses they generate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something to be thinking about where they sit. And I might take that one away and come back with a more complete answer on that.
And also, Vanessa asked if you see the role of PIM and MDM changing to facilitate AEO.
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. I think they've become less back office and more front office. I think for me, it's a resurgence or a renaissance of needing that good quality product data to really move it forward. I mean, I think AI it's in itself has really any AI program needs trusted data, and as we're moving towards different ways of consumers engaging to buy products, you need to have those foundational layers in place. So for me, I think PIM in particular for this subject is become business critical to ensure that you have the completeness that you need to make sure that you are performing in this new search mechanism. So I mean, obviously I always thought MDM and PIM were super exciting. Luckily, it seems like the market and everybody else is catching up to that.
And just to complement also onto that comment, Helen, I think PIM and as well as MDM is not just a good to have thing, but it is, I think, it's more becoming a need to have for having a right responses coming out from an AI agents as well. So having the right data quality and the right governance around it does enable a better outcome and better response for AI agents as well, and not just from the human behaviors.
And I think it's also to think about with the master data, it's not just PIM that's going to take that, it's going to give you that quality for so many other parts of your organization as well. And thinking about, PIM, this can service many other channels as well. I see the AEO and delivering to that as being another channel. But of course, as things change and shopper behavior changes, we've got to be able to keep up with that. So having confidence that the data that you have about your products is the best it can be allows you to just not worry about what's next and what's around the corner and what the next big thing's going to be. So I think it's almost setting yourself up for success in the future as well, because who knew, if we think about it 5 years ago, who knew this is the kind of conversation that we were going to be having?
We have a next question from Dimitri, and I think I will be a bit biased on this one, but the question here is which PIM provider typically has the best capabilities to enable FMCG companies being successful?
Well, of course, we're going to say that it's Syndigo. Obviously, we have a full stack that goes from MDM to PIM to syndication to social proof to digital shelf analytics, all in one stack. Of course, other PIMs are available. As I used to work at Gartner, I know there's over 270 different PIMs out there, but it really depends on what you're looking for from the solution and what areas you want to cover within your product life cycle. That is, of course, my opinion. You can offer yours, Sandeep.
Oh, well, for us, again, we are in a partnership with Syndigo. So, like I mentioned, that we'll be biased about this as well. But just on the fact that where we can come into picture is about how we operationalize data for enabling your PIM solutions, your MDM solutions to meet the newer demands and the new ways of behaviors that are being exhibited by our customers as well.
Yeah. And I think from our side here at Syndigo, we're really leaning into ways that we can support you on this journey and ensuring that the way that we are developing and enhancing our products are aligned with what the market needs. So, of course, yes, we would say Syndigo is the best fit. So, thank you very much for that question.
And we have a question from Haley about that they use Bank, but
Okay.
don't use PIM or MDM. Do you still recommend the same processes?
I mean, Brand Bank, of course, is fantastic for storing information about your products and the images and so on. But I think it's important to be thinking about is do you have the right processes in place to publish where it's needed and to make sure that it's as complete as you want it to be, and ensuring that you have the content around the products that you would need to make sure that they were discoverable. I think Brand Bank is great for giving you I would say, a good core set of information, but it's not maybe optimized for how you want things to appear and be selected within an AI agent. Because if you're just taking a neat feed from Brand Bank, it's potentially the same as your competitors are having. So I think it's being able to add that extra layer of, I'm going to say sparkle, I love to say sparkle, but also enhancing that to make sure that that list that are in an agent, you land higher than your competitors. So I think Brand Bank has a great, use case and so on for what it's giving you, but it's how can you optimize that to make sure that you're landing on the digital shelf and also within the new AI agents and so on. So I think for me, PIM is complementary to Brand Bank. Of course, we can integrate the two together.
And just to also complement the fact that, for me, the way I see it as well, a PIM or MDM, they are not necessarily the more fancier things, basically because they always sit behind the scenes of what is happening, but they're very critical for building up the right foundations that would enable for, meeting the way the amount of data that is being processed and the way it is being processed as well. And we spoke about the characteristics, the responses, and the relevance of the responses that comes out, and that comes with quality, and that the foundations of using PIM or MDM is about enabling the right data quality about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your questions. We're just up on time. So, um,
I think thank you everyone for joining us and for engaging us with this discussion.
yeah, and thank you from my side. And as you take this back into your own organization, I really suggest starting with three questions. Where are we visible today? Where is our product data strongest? And where are we making AI work harder than it should?
And keeping my governance hats on, who owns the AI visibility?
Oh, yeah, because that one can get interesting quite quickly. And finally, I would ask, would AI trust our product data enough to recommend us? And if the answer is not sure, that's probably the right place to start.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, and may your product data be clean, trusted, and highly recommendable. Thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us today.